Hari Om. Let's get started with our invocation prayers.
सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तुते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततल्यपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो भोक्ता गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतथा जयद्रथशला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननडी कैवर्तककेशवा पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोद्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्परैरहरहः पीपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद् भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः
Hari Om. So, what we have seen in the last couple of satsang is that Arjuna is getting clarity on why he should perform Karma Yoga and not dive straight into absorption or samadhi, which is the question that he had asked. That why should I not go straight into the absorption of a Sthita Prajna? And the reasons that Bhagavan has shared with him are: one, he is not yet ready for absorption, and even if he tries, he will not be able to. He can close his eyes and sit in meditation, but his mind will wander. He will not be able to attain the samadhi, and he will not be able to go deeper into absorption. And that is one of the primary reasons why he should not try that as of now. The other risk is that if he tries, like oftentimes a lot of people get over enthusiastic and then they start doing it. And because they have started trying it, they also need to start putting up a show. So outwardly they appear as if they are calm, but inwardly their mind is all over the place, roaming all over the sense objects and dwelling into what they had experienced in the past, rather than getting deeper into contemplation and absorption and focusing on the higher ideal. So there Bhagavan says it is a risk, because then this person is nothing but an impostor. He is a mithyachara, where the behavior of the person is not in consonance with the actual reality. So Bhagavan cautions Arjuna against trying to do that. The third reason is that Arjuna as of now is only fit for Karma Yoga. He is only qualified for Karma Yoga. He has reached a stage where he is still into Karma Yoga. At the same time, Bhagavan says that Karma Yoga is the launching pad for your spiritual path, Arjuna. And you have made fantastic progress. You are Anagha. You have reached a stage where your mind is pure. So keep at it. He encourages Arjuna. Keep at it, continue with the progress that you are making. Continue in the same path. And the fifth reason is that he needs to evolve over a period of time. This is not something that can be forced upon. This is not a revolution. A revolution can be sudden, it can be ad hoc, it can be disruptive. But an evolution, and in this case Arjuna needs to evolve, it is slow, it is transformative, and it is gentle. And there are times when a revolution is needed, and there are times when one needs to evolve. And this is clearly a path where one needs to evolve. And this, what Arjuna is hearing and learning from Sri Krishna, is applicable to all of us. And as we are progressing on our spiritual path, we need to focus on our Karma Yoga and performing our duties in a manner that is dedicated with Shraddha. Bhagavan calls it Samachara. And we must also avoid shortcuts where we are pretending that we have achieved a level that we have actually not achieved. It is like a 12th grade biology student pretending to become an open heart surgeon. That will not work. So we have to avoid those shortcuts. The second thing that Bhagavan does is he calls Arjuna's attention to point out the difference between a person who looks disengaged from the outside, who appears to be disengaged, but actually is wandering inside, as a contrast to a person who outwardly appears to be in intense action, engrossed in action, but inwardly his mind is focused on the higher ideal and is calm and staunchly focused on the Lord or the higher ideal, whatever you see as God. And then Bhagavan proceeds to instruct Arjuna. He actually gives him an instruction. And what is that? He's prescribing to Arjuna. Arjuna, perform your prescribed and obligatory duties. That is the instruction that Bhagavan gives to Arjuna. Perform your prescribed and obligatory duties. Because for you, O Arjuna, action is far superior than inaction. Because in inaction, you will think that you will try to absorb, but that will not happen. So for the state at which you are in now, action is far more superior than inaction. And if you don't act, then forget about attaining Chitta Shuddhi and beyond, forget about getting into Samadhi, you will not even be able to perform the basic roles that are required for your livelihood and for the maintenance and growth of your body. The bodily duties, the bodily roles also will come under severe strain. In some cases, life may go on, but the beauty of living will go away. After this, Bhagavan introduces a wonderful concept. That is the concept of the Yajna spirit, the spirit of cooperative endeavor, and the concept of Vedic socialism. And he explains to Arjuna how working with a spirit of service and without a motive for selfishness, without a motive for selfish gain, and how do you do that work? And Sri Krishna says that only in the spirit of cooperative endeavor can all species prosper. And the key element of cooperative endeavor is first give forward and then receive back, is the key element of the Yajna spirit. And he talks about the 5 types of Yajnas, they being the Deva Yajna, or which is the Yajna for the sacrifice that is made for the deities. And who are the deities? Nothing but the representatives of the natural elements that comprise this universe, and based on their various functions, they are given a name and an identity. They are the deities, beautifully scripted in our scriptures, each one of them. 33 core deities. The second type of Yajna is the Pitru Yajna, or the sacrifices we make for our ancestors. The third type of Yajna is the Brahma Yajna or Rishi Yajna, which is nothing but the sacrifices for our scriptures and the rishis who have brought these scriptures to us. And in the context of the modern world, it is nothing but finding time to read our scriptures and discussing and propagating our scriptures. So our weekly satsang is a form of Brahma Yajna. The fourth is Manushya Yajna, where we make sacrifices for our fellow human beings, where we look after our fellow human beings, help those in need, and so on and so forth. And the last and final 5th type of Yajna is the Bhuta Yajna, where we make sacrifices for fellow creatures, all fellow creatures, animals, plants, and other kinds of creatures that comprise this wonderful creation. And how we look after them, how we enable them to grow, how we do not use them for our selfish gain. And that is Bhuta Yajna. With this Yajna spirit, God says, may you nourish the gods. And when he is referring to may you nourish the gods, he means nourishing all the 5 aspects that come in the Yajna: the Deva, the Pitru, the Brahma, the Manushya, and the Bhuta, all of them. May you nourish all of them, and may they nourish you back. And in this way, mutually nourishing each other, all of you shall attain the highest good. And essentially, the spirit of cooperative endeavor, or the Yajna attitude, is first give forward and then receive back. Then Bhagavan talks about a person who does not do so. What about this person who enjoys the bounty of the nature, enjoys everything selfishly for selfish purposes, without offering or without sharing, or enjoys for selfish gain while causing hurt to other creatures? Both these he talks about, and the title that Bhagavan gives to such a person is Tena, or thief. I briefly mentioned one of the words that Sri Krishna uses again and again is samachara. When you perform karma yoga, perform with samachara. And that concept is nothing but where you do whatever you do with bhakti, with dedication, with shraddha, with perfection. Samyak achara iti samachara. So whatever you do with that focus of dedication. And that then leads to excellence. There's one more thing that Bhagavan talks about is that in our day-to-day life, as we are going about our day-to-day life, what happens is that we end up committing certain, when we are saying that you live in the Yajna spirit, give first, take care of other creatures, don't harm other creatures. We do a lot of things in an unknown manner, right? We perform quote unquote sins in an unknown manner. What we mean by sins is when we do something and when you consciously think about that something, it causes internal disturbance. That is a sin. A sin is nothing but anything that causes internal disturbance to us. That itself is a sin. So if we are doing something and that when we think about it or when we are aware that we are doing it causes internal disturbance, that is a sin. And there are sins that we may do in an unconscious way without knowing while we are going about our day-to-day duties. While we are, for example, cleaning the house. Earlier it was broomstick, now it is vacuum cleaner. While we are, using water in a potable manner, carrying it in cans or tins or pots or whatever it may be, storing it in a refrigerator, cooling it, warming it, and so on and so forth. While we are using the mortar and pestle or the grinding stone or the mixer to grind things, or while we are using the oven, while we are using our automobile to drive, while we are sitting and flying in planes in our crafts, whatever these natural day-to-day duties that we do, we may be causing harm to some other creatures. And if we consciously do these yajnas, Bhagavan says that any sin that may come, any disturbance that may come from unconsciously harming other creatures will also get addressed, will get washed away. And then he says that it is this wheel of action, this wheel of the universe which is in motion, and that wheel of universe which is in motion is another reason why we need to perform action. So that one, we keep pace with it, and two, we do not go against the fast spinning wheel of motion. And how do we do that? He now explains. So we'll now read the next two verses together, which is verses 14 and 15.
Annat bhavanti bhutani.
Annat bhavanti bhutani.
Parjanyadanna sambhavaha.
Parjanyadanna sambhavaha.
Yajnat bhavati parjanyo.
Yajnat bhavati parjanyo.
Yajna karma samudbhavaha.
Yajna karma samudbhavaha.
Karma brahmodbhavam viddhi.
Karma brahmodbhavam viddhi.
Brahmakshara samudbhavam.
Brahmakshara samudbhavam.
Tasmat sarvagatam brahma.
Tasmat sarvagatam brahma.
Nityam yajne pratishtitam.
Nityam yajne pratishtitam.
Annad bhavanti bhutani. Parjanyadanna sambhavaha. Yajnad bhavati parjanyo. Yajna karma samudbhavam. Karma brahmodbhavam viddhi. Brahmakshara samudbhavam. Tasmat sarvagatam brahma. Nityam yajne pratishtitam.
Annad. Annad means from food. Bhavanti comes forth. From food comes what? Bhutani, beings. And food, anna, sambhavaha, is produced from parjanya. Parjanya is rain. And then yagyat, from yagya, bhavati comes forth, parjanyo, rain. And yagya, samudbhavaha, is born from karma, action. So from food comes forth beings, and food is produced from rain. From yagya or sacrifice arises rain, and yagya is born from action or karma. So a beautiful cosmic chain that Bhagavan is beginning to establish. So he says that all of us, all beings come from food, are born from food. How is that? Fairly simple, right? Today we know the food that our parents eat, that transforms into the seed which leads to our body inside our mother's belly, right? So that is how the food becomes who we are today. And we beings, we also survive on food. We need food. Not only do we come from food, we also live by food. And then this food, it comes from rain. If it stops raining, water in our planet will go away. And water in our planet goes away, that means there is going to be no food, which means there's going to be no beings. So the food comes from rain. Rains come from yajna or sacrifice. There is a common misconception that yajna means fire ritual, where you light a fire and you pour oil or ghee into it, and the smoke from that goes and forms clouds. And when lots of people are doing yajna, those clouds then lead to rain. That is a fairly common misconception. That's not true. Yajna here clearly implies the 5 yajnas, 5 sacrifices. That is what leads to rain, which is essentially the Deva yajna, the Pitru yajna, the Brahma yajna, the Manushya yajna, and the Bhuta yajna. And where does yajna come from? Yajna comes from karma or action, following the duty. Duty towards what? Duty towards Deva, duty towards Pitru, duty towards Brahma, duty towards Manushya, and duty towards Bhuta. All 5 of them. That is where the yajna comes from. And all of this contributes to this cosmic order. And it is an extremely well-maintained cosmic order. And this is the cosmic order that provides sustenance, growth, and prosperity. All these, even minimal sustenance, growth, and prosperity, all of this comes from that. When any of the elements in this are not performed, then there is a problem. For example, when karma is not performed, there is no rain. And what happens when there is no rain? It leads to either a parched earth and scarcity of water. Or there is too much rain that leads to floods, like we are witnessing in Mumbai now. Either it is too much, where nature is coming forth to us in much, much more quantity than we need, or it just constricts and we are parched of what we need from nature. And what we are facing in the form of corona is a form of this destabilization. The spirit of yajna also implies humility. When we have as human beings, we have some kind of an influence or we achieve something, the humility that comes from it or needs to go with it is also covered under the spirit of yajna. For example, when you are climbing mountains in the Himalayas, one way to look at it is like, some of us, we went on this trek to Rupin Pass. It's a pretty tall peak, above almost 16,000 feet above sea level. And some of us had this attitude of I scaled Rupin Pass. It's like man says, I conquered Everest. We conquered Everest. When we were on the top of Rupin Pass, there was this helper, who was one of the staff, and he prostrated, and we were all looking at him. He prostrated, he prayed, and he said, I thank Mother Earth for allowing me, for enabling me to set my foot in this pious land on her peak. See the difference in attitude. It is not a conquest. So even when you scale peaks, when you have this humility, that is yajna spirit. So continuing, Bhagavan says, Karma Brahmodbhavam Vidhi. Vidhi means please know, understand, Arjuna, please understand. Understand what? That action, karma, which is also the knowledge to perform action. How do you perform action? How do we do various things? We talked about it, right? The Karma Kanda section of the Vedas beautifully lists out every single step and every single action that humankind can perform. All the action, it's elaborate and it is comprehensive. So karma comes from Brahmodbhavam. Bhavati Brahma, comes from Brahma. the vast Vedas. So Brahma also implies vast, and Vedas is also a name for Brahma, or Brahma is also a name for Vedas. So karma, which comes from the knowledge of performance, comes from the Vedas. And Brahma Akshara Samudbhavan, and the Brahma itself, that comes from Akshara. Akshara means imperishable. Kshara is something that can be destroyed. Akshara is something which is indestructible, Avinashi. So when we are speaking of Vedas, as per our tradition, there is no author of Vedas, not even the Brahman, not even God. Vedas came as the wisdom contained in the Vedas manifested as a part and parcel of creation. And Brahman, the creator, Brahma, the creator, reveals the Vedas at every creation. So what has Bhagavan done in these 1.5 verses, the last 1.5 verses, Bhagavan has revealed a beautiful causal chain that establishes this cosmic order. What is this causal chain? Beings come from food, food comes from rain, rain comes from yajna or sacrifice, yajna comes from karma, karma comes from Veda, and Veda comes from Brahman. Here I used 3 English words and 4 Sanskrit words. So beings bhuta, food is anna, and rain is parjanya. So that's the beings from food, food from rain, rain from sacrifice, sacrifice from action, action from the scriptures, the Vedas, and Vedas from the creator or the indestructible. Any one link in this chain is broken, then beings will not be there. We will not be there. That is an awareness that all of us need to have. Possibly it may not happen in our lifetime, but it will definitely happen in our subsequent lifetimes, which is our children or grandchildren or beyond that. Any one link is broken, beings will not be there. And there are 2 critical components in this chain. They are one, yajna or sacrifice, which is the spirit of cooperative endeavor, and karma or action, which is performance of duty. These are almost in the middle of that chain. Now, all creatures of creation, they are driven by instinct. Human beings, on the contrary, are driven by will. This will helps us make choices. And the break in this cosmic chain happens only and only when a human being is involved. A break does not happen when any other creature, even in today's world, no other creature crosses this break. The break is happening only when human beings are involved. So do we as human beings want to be responsible for the destruction of this cosmic order? That is a question which is extremely relevant that Srimad Bhagavad Gita is presenting to us today. That is why the relevance of Bhagavad Gita at any point in time in humanity, at any time, at any century. Today, it is starkly standing in front of us. Do we as human beings, do we want to take this crest, to take this title of being the destroyer of this cosmic order? That's for us to answer. And now Bhagavan says, Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma. Therefore, Arjuna, the all-pervading Brahman, Nityam Yajna Pratishtitam, is ever established in Yajna. Even the Brahman. So in the first 1.5 verses, he presented this cosmic chain. And then he says that even the Brahman is ever established in sacrifice, in performance of duty, in Yajna. By saying that implies, oh human being, so much depends on you. Recognize your power. Even when the all-pervading Brahman, if that all-pervading Brahman is ever focused in the spirit of Yajna, then you as a human being, what excuse do you have to not have that spirit of Yajna? It will be the next session. Bhagavan will actually give his own personal example of how he is performing karma. But what have we done? It's this kind of a vicious cycle that human beings have come through over the centuries. For centuries, especially in the Western world actually, okay, organized religion has used mysteries of creation to rule over the masses and actually even give direction to the kings and the emperors, become more powerful than the kings and the emperors. So religious leaders, religious masters were much more powerful than rulers, than politicians. And now I'm going to quote Stephen Hawking. Okay, Stephen Hawking, did God create the universe? In that he talks all of this, where he says that in the Western world, organized religion, and what did organized religion do? So he says in 1277, Pope John Paul the 21st, he felt so threatened by the laws of nature that he declared them as heresy. Heresy means blasphemy. So, for example, the law of gravitational pull is blasphemy. What these acts did when a religious leader who had so much following makes such a declaration, it made it appear as if nature and God, the natural laws and God, are two separate things. One day what happened was, while Pope John Paul the 21st was sleeping, the roof collapsed on top of him. It just came down on him. So the same laws of nature that he had declared as heresy, that caused his own demise. And his life was cut short. This was a big blow. We are talking about 1277. This was a big blow to organized religion. But organized religion didn't give in. It continued with the same spirit. Where it said, it kind of slightly twisted it and said that the laws of nature are work of God, but God can break it whenever he wishes. Now this is in complete contradiction to what Sri Krishna just said. Tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagye pratishtitam. Sri Krishna is saying what? He is saying that even Brahman, even the creator, he follows the spirit of yajna. One who is living in unison with this wheel of creation is contributing to the harmony of life. Whereas organized religion presents it in a different way. By the way, this is true for other religions, organized religions also. I just gave you one example. Stephen Hawking, he continues to say, by the way, Stephen Hawking is one of the greatest scientists of our modern times. And also one of the biggest skeptics, non-believers, atheist. He imagined a cosmic cookbook. And it's beautiful when I read this, okay? And what I'm going to show it to you is what he says is exactly what is there in our Bhagavad Gita too. So this cosmic cookbook describes how universe is made, like how we make food, how the universe, God, in this case, not Stephen Hawking is not saying that, how universe is made, not how God is making universe. There are 3 ingredients, he says, that are required to make this universe. The first one is matter, stuff that has mass. The second one is energy. Energy permeates the universe and makes it dynamic, ever changing, ever moving. And the third element that is required to make, or ingredient that is required to make the universe is space. Vast, stretching in all directions. And then he goes on to delve into it and says, where did all this matter, energy, space, where did all this come from? A scientific answer to this question came only in the 20th century by the work of another famous scientist called Albert Einstein. So Albert Einstein realized that mass and energy is nothing but the same, or you can call it two sides of the same coin. His equation E is equal to mc square basically says that mass can be thought of as energy and vice versa. So then Hawkins asks, so if mass and energy are the same, let's say energy, where did the space and energy come from? And then science establishes that both were spontaneously created in an event, which today we know as the Big Bang. Okay, but does it end there? Where did this Big Bang out of nowhere come from? Out of nothing? God says the spiritualist. The spiritualist will say anything and everything. Energy came from God, mass came from God, space came from God, the Big Bang also came from God. The scientists say it comes from something called negative energy. A very simple example that Stephen Hawking gives is, if you have to dig the earth and build a mountain, then you are correspondingly digging a hole, which is almost equal to the size of the mountain that you are building. So that hole is the negative energy to the mountain. So science has this theory that as much as this Big Bang has created energy, in the space resides the negative energy also. But the spiritualist says that all that is also God, all that is also Brahman. So we'll be patient, we'll wait for the science and spiritualist followers to come to terms with each other. But for now, let me point out that what Bhagavan Sri Krishna says in his cosmic chain, beings, which is Bhuta, food, Anna, rain, Parjanya. These three are matter that we all can clearly understand in a scientific way. They are matter. Yajna and karma are energy. Scientific way they are energy. Veda and Brahman are space. And if you notice, the first two, beings, food and rain, in one aspect, and yajna and karma, sacrifice and action, they are nothing but two sides of the same coin. So much before, whether it was Hawkins or Einstein or Galileo or Aristarchus, much before that, Bhagavan Sri Krishna is saying something which scientists are saying today. It's a beautiful concept. This concept of cosmic order, concept of this chain link. And all of us need to keep that in our mind as we go about our day-to-day work. We have to be aware of this cosmic link. Are we being part of this cosmic link? Are we contributing to this cosmic link? Or are we eliminating ourselves from the cosmic link and not contributing to the cosmic link? In fact, taking from it but not giving back is a crucial question that each one of us should ask. Now, Bhagavan addresses what happens if one disobeys this cosmic order. That is in the next verse.
Evam pravartitam chakram.
Evam pravartitam chakram.
Nanuvartayati hayaha.
Nanuvartayati hayaha.
Agayurindriyaramo.
Agayurindriyaramo.
Mogham partha sajivati.
Mogham partha sajivati.
Evam pravartitam chakram. Nanuvartayati hayaha. Agayurindriyaramo. Mogham partha sajivati.
Evam pravartitam. The established. Thus established. Evam thus. Pravartitam established. Established in what manner? In a revolving manner. The cosmic chain. Thus set revolving. In fact, organized religion for a number of years said the earth was the center of the universe, everything was flat, there was no revolution. The first person to kind of discuss that there was a revolution was Aristarchus. But here, Bhagavan is saying, Evam pravartitam, set revolving in that, established in that revolution, in that chain link. Chakram, wheel of life, the causal chain. Chakram is a revolution. Na anuvartyati, does not follow. One who does not follow this established chakram, anuvartati, does not become part of it, derives benefit from it but does not contribute. Yeah, such a person, aghayuhu. Aghayuhu means lives a sinful life, is an embodiment of sin. Sin, again, sin means if you are not contributing, somehow or the other, there will be internal disturbance within you. That is sin. Let's not even worry about going to hell and so on and so forth. Right now, as we are living, there will be internal disturbances if we are not contributing to this cosmic chain, somehow or the other. And if we put some time and effort in our own life to link it, we will find out that the source of that sin, that source of that disturbance is linked to not contributing to this chakra. Aghayuhu. Agha means sin. Ayu is age or life in this context. Aghayuhu is a sinful life. Indriya Ramo, reveling in his senses. Indriya senses, aram, enjoying. Indriya Ramo, reveling in his senses. Sajivati, he lives. And how does he live? Mogam, in vain. There is no purpose that is served by this person's life. He lives in vain. Bhagavan continues.
Yastvat maratireva syad.
Yastvat maratireva syad.
Atmatriptascha manavaha.
Atmatriptascha manavaha.
Atmanyevachat santushtas.
Atmanyeva cha santushta.
Tasya karyam na vidyate.
Tasya karyam na vidyate.
Yastvat maratireva syad. Atmatriptascha manavaha. Atmanyevacha santushtas. Tasya karyam na vidyate.
So Bhagavan here introduces three wonderful, beautiful concepts that we actually went through when we went through the spiritual path. In that we have touched upon this. Here Bhagavan is actually, so when we touched upon it, we took it from here. Three wonderful concepts. So Bhagavan says two. Two is two. We have seen this earlier. Yes, tu atmarati. Two is but. But this person, so but means in contrary to this previous person, the previous verse. In the previous verse, he talked about a person who lives in moga, in vain. In contrary, as a contrast to this person who Indriya Ramo revels in his senses, this person who rejoices in the self, Atmarati. Atmarati means rejoices in the self only, eva. And cha is hand, and syada means who is atmatripta, satisfied with the self, in the self. Manavaha, that person. And also santushta, that means contented, in the self only, atmanyeva, in the self only. And for this person, tasya, na, not, vidyate, there is, or this person is not bound by what? Karyam, action. So Bhagavan says, but the person who rejoices in the self, who is satisfied in the self, contented in the self, that person is not bound by action. So the three terms Bhagavan introduces here are Atma Tripti, which is self-delight, Atma Rathi, self-satisfaction, and Atma Santushti, which is self-contentment. This person, we talked about this person when we went through the spiritual path in Samadhi. This person in Samadhi, Samadhi leads to Atma Tripti, Atma Rathi, Atma Santushti. After attaining Tattva Jnana, when the person is in Samadhi, with absolute devotion or bhakti, that person experiences Atma Tripti, Atma Rathi, and Atma Santushti. As a contrast, going back to the previous verse, the people of the world, our Rathi, our Tripti, our Santushti, all of that comes from the world. It's dependent on the world. We get very happy very easily. Small little gift, a little praise, some acknowledgement. Those are the things that make us happy. All of these lead to delight, satisfaction, and contentment. And as we are taking all of this from the world, as a consequence, we are bound to the world, both in terms of dependence to receive all of this, and in terms of duty, bound by duty to give back to the five by performing the yajnas. So in both ways, we are depending, so we are bound. And because we are receiving, we have to give back, so we are bound. But please remember all this time, Bhagavan says, first give, then take. On the contrary, a person who revels and is satisfied and is contented in the self, in the performance of the duty of that person, in addition to cosmic nourishment, Bhagavan says that you get cosmic nourishment. We saw this in the last Saturday's satsang. Also gets self-nourishment. So what is the cosmic nourishment? The cosmic nourishment is Devan Bhavayata Nena Te Deva Bhavayantuvaha Parasparam Bhavayantaha Shreya Paramavapsyatha. That is verse 11 in chapter 3. So Bhagavan says, with this Yajna spirit, Devan Bhavayata Nena, may you nourish the gods. And may those gods nourish you in return. In this way, mutually nourishing each other, you shall attain the highest. So that nourishment comes from the cosmos, cosmic nourishment. But in addition to that, this person gets Atma Tripti, Atma Rati, Atma Santushti. So this person is getting nourished both from outside and from within. And such a person, Bhagavan says, Na vidyate karyam, is not bound by action. Why? Why is this person not bound by action? Because he is first giving. She is first giving. First give forward. Already done. Already given. Already action is completed before receiving. And the action was done without the selfish cause of expecting back or receiving back. So once I happened to be in this satsang where a Swamiji had come to somebody's home, and this is either called a satsang or it's called Diksha. Okay. And typically, in these kind of situations, there is first a lecture where everyone listens to the sermon from Swamiji and followed by a meal. However, in this case, as soon as the entourage came, one of the, sevaks, one of the people who served Swamiji, he went to the host and he said, Swamiji is very hungry. Let's do the meal first, the Bhiksha first, followed by the talk. So a proper meal was served. And Swamiji, obviously was pretty famished and he gobbled it up. We were all not eating. Obviously, he was only eating, but we were watching and he just gobbled it up. And then he said, Tripti, delightful meal. Lord, you'll find a lot of people saying Tripta, after eating well. But did he get Rati, satisfaction? So Swamiji's sevak said that Gulab Jamun as a dessert would have been nice. Luckily for the host, there was, just around the corner, there was a sweet shop. So quickly somebody ran, got some Gulab Jamun. Swamiji was served Gulab Jamun. Atma Rati, satisfaction obtained. But then Swamiji later on actually said, is there nice hot South Indian filter coffee? So contentment had still not come. Santushti had still not come. So a cup of filter coffee. And after, the Atma Rati, Atma Tripti, Atma Santushti, after the meal, the Gulab Jamun and the filter coffee and a loud burp, which everybody present in the room heard. After that, do you think the Swamiji, he's bound to give back now? Bound to give back. After enjoying this delight and the satisfaction and the contentment. But how do you think after this beautiful meal, however the lecture was? It's your guess. So how does a person who is an actual sage, an actual Swami, who is not depending on the meal and the Gulab Jamun and the coffee for Rati, Tripti, Santushti, that person, a person who follows the Yajna spirit, how does that person do? That is in the next verse.
Naiva tasya krite nartho.
Naiva tasya krite nartho.
Na krite neha kaschana.
Na krite neha kaschana.
Na chasya sarva bhuteshu.
Na chasya sarva bhuteshu.
Kaschidartavya pashrayah.
Kaschid arthavya pashrayah.
Naiva tasya krite nartho. Na krite neha kaschana. न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चिदर्थव्यपाश्रयः.
Tasya, for this person, naiva, there is no what? Artha, interest. There is no interest in kritena, action. And na kaschana kritena, not any action which is not done. And then following, Bhagavan says, neither is this person vyapashrayah, means depending upon. This person is not depending upon sarva bhuteshu, any or all beings, for kaschid, any artha, gain. So this person, there is no interest for this person in what is done in terms of action or what is not done. Kritena, akritena. Neither is there any interest in kritena, nor is there any interest in akritena. And nor is this person depending upon any and all beings for any object gain. So Bhagavan says, kritena na artha. Not looking for any meaning or gain from action. Na akritena na artha. Whether action is done or not done, is not looking for any meaning or any gain. And na vyapashrayah, not depending upon. Swami Chinmayananda used to say, it was quite beautiful when he was talking about this aspect. This person accepting everything, rejecting nothing. So whatever comes, accept. Do not reject. Keeping nothing, reflecting everything. Beautiful way to put this. And Bhagavan says, however, Arjuna, you are not yet this Atmarati, Atmatrupti, Atmasantushti. You are very much dependent on this world. Neither have you reached the stage of steady wisdom, which is what? Brahmanasya Vijanataha, the seeker who has come to realize. If you remember in verse 46 of chapter 2, Yavan artha udapane sarvatas samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanataha. That seeker who has come to realize. Arjuna, you are not that. You are not yet there. You are not brahmanasya vijanataha. Because you are not, therefore, he continues. Tasmat, next verse.
Tasmat asakta satatam.
Tasmat asakta satatam.
Karyam karma samachara.
Karyam karma samachara.
Asakto hyacharan karma.
Asakto hyacharan karma.
Paramapnoti purushaha.
Paramapnoti purushaha.
Tasmad asakta satatam. Karyam karma samachara. Asakto hyacharan karma. Paramapnoti purushaha.
Bhagavan says samachara here, first line, last word again. So tasmad, therefore, satatam, always, samachara, perform with dedication. What? Karyam karma, obligatory action. Asaktaha, without attachment. Because charan, performing karma, action. Asakto, without attachment. Because performing action without attachment. Purusha, the person, human being. Apnoti param, attains the supreme. So Bhagavan says, therefore Arjuna, always perform with dedication, with shraddha, with joy, with fullness, with love. Samachara, your obligatory actions. And asakta, without attachment. Asakta. Because performing action without attachment, you will attain the supreme. In verse 16, we saw Indriya Ramo. This is in contrast to Indriya Ramo. Indriya Ramo is fully attached to the Indriyas. Rama means reveling. And Indriya Rama means reveling in the senses. Rama is one who revels. Lord Rama revels in his bhaktas. Okay, Lakshmana and Sita, without whom he would not have been able to undertake the severe vanvas. His bhaktas who just left everything. Only Rama had to go, by the way. He didn't have to go. In today's world, the brother and wife would have said, thank you, bye-bye, Tata, we'll see you later. You go and come back. Okay, there Sita and Lakshmana accompanied him. And not to USA or to Paris. They accompanied him to the Vanvas, the forest. Bharata, who safeguarded the kingdom by keeping Rama's sandal on the throne, did not proclaim himself king even for one day, and thereby showed his devotion. Sugriva, who kept his entire army at the disposal of Sri Rama. Vibhishana, who was actually Ravana's brother, who went against his brother, tried to advise Ravana to fall in line, tried to advise him that the way of the right is this. When he didn't listen, left his brother and came to Rama, who he was devoted to. So all these people, he was reveling in, and he still revels in. And of course, who can forget Hanuman? Hanuman lived, breathed for Sri Rama. So Sri Rama reveled in his bhaktas, but not only that, more than anything, Sri Rama reveled in performing his duties. He went to forest to perform his duty towards his Pitru Yajna, for his father, to safeguard the father's oath. For that, this was a yajna that he performed, Pitru Yajna. Always reveled more than anything else, more than even his bhaktas, in performance of duties. So Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, Arjuna, like Rama, just like Rama, revel in the performance of your duty. Do not let go of your obligatory duties. Remember, we are in the Senayor Ubhayor Madhye, middle of the battlefield. And what is Arjuna going to do? Let go of his duty and run away. So Bhagavan is giving him the example of Sri Rama and telling him, revel in the performance of your duty. And he talks about why he should perform. He now gives example of people who attained the supreme while living in the humdrum of karmic life, so as to further egg Arjuna, motivate him to perform his duty. That's in the next verse.
Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim.
Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim.
Astita janakadayaha.
Astita janakadayaha.
Lokasangrahamevapi.
Lokasangrahamevapi.
Sampashyan kartumarhasi.
Sampashyan kartumarhasi.
Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim. Astita janakadayaha. Lokasangrahamevapi. Sampashyan kartumarhasi.
So, Janakadayaha, Janaka and others, King Janaka and others. King Janaka, by the way, was Sita's father, Rama's father-in-law. He means certainly, they certainly, Astita, Astita means attained, samsiddhim, perfection. Karmanaiva, by action only. Sampashyam, having a view of Lokasangram. Lokasangram means holding the world together. Arhasi, you should. Evapi, only. Kartum, perform action. So what is Bhagavan saying? He's saying two things here. One, he's saying King Janaka and others like Janaka. There was Ajatashatru, then there was Ashwapati. There are a lot of these. If we go through the Puranas, we'll find a lot of famous kings, who were epitome in terms of how they performed their royal duties. Even Sri Rama, after vanquishing Ravana, an epitome in terms of how a king should rule his kingdom. They certainly attained perfection by performing their duties only, by action only. And then he says, you should do that. And why should you do that? Because you have a duty of holding this world together, Loka Sangra. And with that view only you should perform action. So Bhagavan is using a very interesting word here, Loka Sangram. Very, very relevant for any leader. Loka means world. Sangra means collection. Loka Sangra means holding the society together, not allowing it to disarray. Today, for example, we can see America is in complete disarray. Because of who? Because of the leader there, because of the president. And if that continues, the disarray will even get more pronounced. So, holding the society together by being an inspiration, by being an ideal, not being contrary to that. The other meaning for Loka Sangra is protecting the masses and to ensure their benefit, their welfare. Protection and welfare is another meaning for Loka Sangra. So Arjuna is looked upon as an ideal. Arjuna is idolized by all the masses in the kingdom. He has a duty to protect everybody. From what? From at that time the tyranny of Duryodhana and Dusashana. Just think about it. If Draupadi's flight in the entire Darbar, in the court, was what the world witnessed, the Loka witnessed. If that was the queen at that time, she was the queen of Indraprastha. So if a queen could go through that plight of disrobing, then imagine the plight of the common woman in that nation at that time. So Arjuna was duty bound to protect these people, the masses. And any influence, so Krishna is reminded in that. And then he goes on to say, any influence that an ideal king or leader will have is immense. So the power you wield, the influence that you wield, is immense on your followers. And he talks about that in the next verse.
Yadyadacharati shreshtas
Yadyadacharati shreshta
tattadevetaro janah
tattadevetaro janah
sayat pramanam kurute
sayat pramanam kurute
lokastadanu vartate
lokastadanu vartate
yadyadacharati shreshtas tattadevetaro janah sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanu vartate.
So Bhagavan says, yad, whatever, Shreshtaha, the person who is preeminent, the Pradhana Bhuta. Pradhana means the primary, the top. The one who is preeminent, the one who is Pradhana Bhuta, the person who is Pradhana. Acharati, what he does. And Acharati, whatever he does, right or wrong. Tat, that. Tat eva, that and that only. Itaraha is the common janaha. Itaraha janaha is the common people, the common man. That is what the common people also do. For example, our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. So when initially this coronavirus came, what did he do? He took these vessels and horns and conches and started clanging them. What did everybody do? The entire nation followed. Don't know whether it was right or wrong, because after that, corona cases went like that. It didn't help. But he did it, and because he did it, everyone did it. It was a celebration. So when this person who is respected does anything, the world follows. That is what Bhagavan is saying. And we witness this here. Another beautiful example of today, this is something that I noticed. You know, there's this guy called Virat Kohli, who is a famous Indian cricket superstar. And he has emerged about 10 years ago. And he started sporting a beard. When he started sporting a beard, the entire Indian cricket team started sporting a beard. The first time in the history of Indian cricket, all 11 players sport a beard. And guess what happened? All youngsters in India sport a beard. You walk around, you will not find a boy who is in his 20s not having a beard. This is the last decade, an evolution or revolution over the last decade. It's absolutely unbelievable. Huh? Narendra Modi bangs a vessel, everyone will bang a vessel. Virat Kohli sports a beard, everyone will sport a beard. So again, Swami Chinmayananda used to say, values are not taught, they are caught. Beautiful statement. Values are not taught, they are caught. And then Bhagavan says, Yatsa, what he, pramanam. Pramanam means demonstrates, certifies, endorses. What he says is the standard. Yatsa pramanam, what he demonstrates or what he states is the standard. Kurute, and also does. Lokaha tad anuvartate. The people, that is what they follow. Lokaha, the people, tad, that, anuvartate, they follow. So society has to be also very, very careful in terms of who we put in the limelight. Probably someone who was as prominent as our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, or maybe even more prominent. We talked about Yagya being misunderstood as a fire ritual. Someone must have said Yagya means fire ritual. But that became more prominent than the real meaning or import what Bhagavan intended, which is the 5 sacrifices. And that became the rule. For all my entire life, I grew up thinking Yagya means, putting bricks, putting firewood, lighting a fire, pouring ghee, and doing a ritual for 2 hours or 3 hours or 10 hours. I grew up thinking that till I read Bhagavad Gita. So somehow, when somebody who is a prominent or preeminent person says something, look at the impact. It can change scripture. So when Pope John Paul says that there is nothing called gravitation, everybody believes that there is nothing called gravitation. So it is very critical that we choose our leaders carefully, because the real significance could get lost if we don't choose our real stand. That person is a Shrestha Purusha. That Shrestha Purusha, we have to be very careful about how we are selected. In fact, in Kathopanishad, it is said, Avidyaya mantare vartamanaha swayam dhiraha panditam anyamanaha jangam yamanaha pariyanti moodhaha andhe naiva niyamana yatantaha. Living in the midst of ignorance and considering themselves intelligent and enlightened, these senseless people go round and round, following a crooked course, just like the blind being led by the blind. So Arjuna is now being guided by Bhagavan on how he can be a leader who is worthy of followership. And Bhagavan will follow this up by giving his own personal example. How he does and how he does his duty, how he goes about performing and living up to his responsibilities, including that of being a charioteer. So Bhagavan actually is in front of Arjuna, which means what? The arrow or the bullet is going to hit Bhagavan before it gets to Arjuna. The reins of the horses are in his hands, which means he is going to take Arjuna through the battlefield. At the end of the day, he has to tend to the horses to make sure that they are fit enough for the next day. Wash them, clean them, make sure the hooves are okay. And he sleeps after Arjuna. And this, who are we talking about? Bhagavan Shri Krishna. And he is going to give his own example of, if I can do my duty, Arjuna, look at me. Why can't you? That we will do in next Saturday. Hari Om.
Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you. Any questions, thoughts, comments, observations? Welcome. I thought that today's satsang, in these verses are extremely, last Saturday and today actually, extremely relevant to modern times, to now. Some of these examples, they are actually, they are hair raising in terms of how Bhagavan, the Bhagavad Gita is so old and, it is still so relevant. It's still so valid. Not just in terms of showing to us how the world works, but also in terms of how we should be living. And the other thing I would encourage all of you to do is, link some of these scientific, I talked about Hawking, modern science and how a lot of it has been around for centuries, and the conflict, all of this very, very intriguing, very interesting, very intriguing, but it all comes down to the same thing.
So, Srini, I have a question. So, on one side, we spoke about this person who should be doing the 5 yagnas, right? The sacrifices, where first you give and then you take, right? And on the other side, we also spoke about this person who has no interest in whatever is done or whatever is not done. So, we're still talking about the same person, right? So how is that? Is it like, you reach a stage like that? That's what, I feel like they're two extremes, right? So it's a journey that you need to undertake, is it?
So we are, I'll answer your question in two ways, okay? One is, we are talking of two people also. Bhagavan constantly refers to, when you contrast this person compared to, okay? Yastvendriyani, yastu indriyani, okay? Yastvatmarati, yastu atmarati. So compared to the Indriya Rama, the Atmarati. So the Indriya Rama is a different person, Atmarati is a different person. So Bhagavan is contrasting two different people, one who has already attained. So even in chapter 2, Bhagavan, when we talked about Dehali Deepagyana, where he says that till now I have told you what I have brought to you is Sankhya. Now listen to Karma. So he Sankhya Nam, Yogi Nam. So the Sankhya Nam is a different person, Yogi Nam is a different person. Both are two different people. So that is for us to learn the characteristics of both these people. The other part is, yes, it is a process. And what is the process? The process is the steps that we laid out in the spiritual path.
Yeah.
And it starts with Karma Yoga. So for anyone who has not yet become a Sankhyan, who is still a yogi, that person needs to go through that process.
Okay.
Karma Yoga, Chitta Shuddhi, Sadhana Chatushtayam, all of that has to happen. Guru Upasadana, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana.
Yeah. Okay.
So all that has to happen. So yes, it is a sequential for the person who is growing, for the person who is traversing the spiritual path. For the person who has already reached that stage, who has got Atmarati, who has got the Bhakti, who has got absorbed in devoted, Bhakti-filled, contemplation and beyond, who has attained Atmarati, Atmatripti, Atmasantushti, that person he doesn't need to go through it all over again.
Okay.
In fact, that person, once the person reaches that stage, he's already giving and then receiving if there is to receive. That she is not even thinking about receiving. She is giving just because the nature is to give. And if there is something to receive, yeah, that's welcome.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So this Atma Tripti, Atma Rati, Atma Santushti is, isn't it just about me and I? I mean, I'm looking something for myself here, totally. How do you explain that?
Sure, that's a very good question. See, we started off by saying I and my should not be there. I and my, the concept of I and my leads to delusion. And then we are saying Atma Tripti, Atma Rati, Atma Santushti, right? So the concept of I and my is when you are performing with that thought of I and my. But when you are performing without any thought, you are performing duty for the sake of doing duty. Sri Rama is the best example. When somebody can go to the forest for the sake of doing duty, in a number of ways, people who lead the country, right? Narendra Modi, it's a wonderful example because they don't have a personal life. Probably the Prime Minister of India works 20 hours a day or maybe 18 hours a day, right? So they are constantly, the entire time is spent towards performing duty. A soldier who is in the border, where is the family? Where is the personal life? You are out there, it's not your home. Nothing belongs to you. You're in some land which is perpetually on your border, and you're doing your duty. So people who are a surgeon who is in front of the operation theater, you are doing your work. So in those situations, those are examples where we can relate to people who are doing it, right? So at that time, will the soldier be thinking about, what am I going to eat once I go back to my camp? What am I going to, take the gift that I'm going to take for my son? If I had gone on a business trip to a foreign land, I will say, oh yeah, I'll take a Barbie doll. In the beginning, when my daughter was born, there was no Barbie doll in India. So when you went abroad, you would get a doll for your daughter, right? So you would take something if you had gone on a business trip abroad. But when you're sitting in the border fighting an enemy soldier, what is there to take back? You are not thinking of anything that you will do later. You are just there. You're there because you're there. And when the bullets are flying, there is no space to think about the future. When you act without thinking about the future, when you act without I and I want in your mind, that action is Karma Yoga. And when you do that, automatically from within, the Tripti, Rati, Santushti emerges from within. It comes by its own from within. It is not about me or mine. So Bhagavan talks about two kinds of nourishment. One nourishment from the cosmic, Devan, where it comes from the Devan. Devan means all five. Devan doesn't only mean Deva. Deva means Deva. Deva means Pitru. Deva means Brahma. Deva means Manushya. And Deva means Bhuta. All of that. All five. So it comes from all five of those. And it comes from within also.
So that means that you do your duty dedicated to the higher goal, and all these three Santushti, Tripti, everything comes by default. It just comes to you, and you're not even supposed to realize it.
No, you realize, of course you receive it and you realize it. You are very well aware. A person who has reached that level, you will know, you will feel. You will feel the Tripti, you will feel the Rati, Tripti, Santushti, all of it. Bhagavan does say that, whatever comes your way, you receive it.
Another
I'm sure
thing,
all of we have felt it, right? I can guarantee that each one of us has had that experience. You realize it only after you feel that sense of inner satisfaction. Before that, you have not even thought about what had happened. Oftentimes you realize, I have personally realized, I'm sure all of us, suddenly you go to office, suddenly you look outside the window and it's dark. Like you said, it's dark today, right? At that time, I didn't realize, but that's a different example. But it is dark. You went to the office at 9 a.m. and it is dark because it is 7 p.m. And you didn't even know what happened during the day. Somehow from 9 a.m. it turned to 7 p.m. It seems as if 9 a.m. was 1 second ago. The entire day has gone by. And you go back home feeling good about the work that you did that day. Inner satisfaction. You didn't think about this inner satisfaction at 9 a.m. You realized it at 7:30 p.m. I'm sure a lot of us have felt that.
Okay, one more thing. I'm not asking, but I'm just commenting on it. Was that values are not taught; they are caught. So totally agree with that. I mean, personally, when I see myself doing certain actions, I just feel that I'm just replicating my mom somewhere. You know, it's like she never taught us things, but it's just that watching her, looking at her, I'm a person who I am today. So truly agree with that. It's a very nice sentence. So just
That's
appreciate that.
Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda, quote unquote. Yes,
Right. So you mentioned about choosing a leader and that one should be thoughtful about who you choose, right? Why is that necessary? Why do we need to have a leader? I think there is something in each of us. Every human being, we can learn from each and every one. We don't need to really have a leader, kind of to follow. So would you comment on that?
Yeah, sure. So see, there are two elements here. One element is the Guru Upasadana, right?
Okay.
When you choose so that's why I said, you choose your Guru depending on the situation, depending on the, requirement. For example, if you're in college second year, you will not go to a grade 6 teacher.
Mm-hmm.
You have a middle school teacher, probably the teacher is 5, 6, 7, 8 math. But if you're doing complicated calculus in your engineering course, maybe the teacher knows, but typically you would not go to the mid-school teacher, right? So depending on the context, depending on the situation, depending on what you need to find a coach, a guru, a teacher, a counselor, a mentor, whoever it may be. And that person can change. And one more thing is that people get stuck to one guru for their lifetime. At the end of the day, every human being realizes by herself or himself. You have to let go of everyone, including the guru, to ultimately realize. So if you hold on to whichever guru, then you are going to stay at that level only. You're not going to go beyond. So you need to evolve and you need to, like you said, choose. Anyone can be a mentor, someone who you think, a good friend who can teach you something. Absolutely. Maybe for 1 hour. Maybe there's another guru who is there for 5 years. Maybe there's another guru, another mentor who's there for 5 years. Maybe there's a guru who is there for 15 years. It depends. Or maybe you have your childhood buddy who's been around you for 35 years and who is a very good mentor and a coach. Yeah. So that is one part. But a leader is a societal role. So whether you are in the army fighting a war, you need that commander. When you are in a plane going from one destination to the other, you need a commander who is flying the aircraft. When you are in a country, there is a government, there is a person who leads that government. So whether it's a king or a prime minister or a president or whoever it may be, that leader, you need to be very careful about who you select, who you choose. In fact, in modern politics, we find that, we have seen we have made a wrong choice. If you ask me, America made a wrong choice and there is a good chance they are going to repeat the wrong choice later this year. Mm-hmm. So today's politicians are not the leaders who are worthy of followership.
Yeah.
So that
Thank you.
leader is what you need to be very careful about choosing.
Mhm.
We elect our local, this community representative, the person who runs Whitefield municipality or whatever you call it, we elect that person. But then there are potholes, I'm sure there is enough tax that we pay. But that tax, I don't know what happens to that tax money that we pay. That leader, we need to be very careful in choosing.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was just saying thanks to Atati for asking that question, and to Srini for wonderfully explaining the difference between choosing the guru and the difference between the guru and the leader. I always had this confusion because I am a person who cannot follow just one person, or cannot accept somebody has all the qualities and be a leader sort of. So I always look people in such a way that what is their best quality and accept it sort of. So thanks for this. This was really helpful.
Thank you.
My dear Srini, can I add something to what this lady was talking about, guru and leader?
Yes, please.
Sir, a guru provides a ready-made solution to all our problems. His entire life is not sufficient to understand certain basic features. See, we have entered a huge mango garden. We have come to eat mangoes in the garden. We have not come to count the number of leaves, the number of branches, who planted that mango tree. It goes on like that. A guru, see, suppose there is a dark room. The dark room can be dark for 1,000 years. But one matchstick will immediately illusion the entire room. Similar, it doesn't matter how many years the room was dark. It may be dark for a half a day, or it may be dark for 1,000 years. A spark will do the trick. Similarly, a guru actually will ensure that all your doubts, all your confusions, all your contradictions, all your hypocrisy, everything is taken care of. And how a guru helps you? Because his own guru's guru has helped him. Similarly, gurus has helped him. That is why we call it as Guru Parampara. Now, in the chain of Guru Parampara, if one guru turns out to be slightly tricky or shady, then the entire chain is lost. One thing is definite, a person who is seeking spiritual sadhana will be automatically graced by the divine in providing him a guru.
That's a wonderful thought. And I will encourage all of us to contribute like this. It adds a lot of value. Yes, what you're saying is very true. It's very valid. It's perfectly fine. We say that sometimes the guru comes to us, sometimes you go to the guru. And we had talked about this in one of the previous satsang also, where we had discussed, the guru and how the guru presents and how do you follow the guru. And somebody had asked that, nowadays it's so hard to find a guru who you think is worthy of followership. So in that kind of a situation, what do you do? And like you said, if you sincerely follow the spiritual path, then you will find it will happen. If nothing else, Bhagavan Sri Krishna is there. Read the Bhagavad Gita, he is your guru.
See, the kind of confusion which our group mates who are listening are having is very common. It occurs to every sadhaka, that is the one who wants to really practice spiritualism. Every time, some sort of problem will come. And that problem will be taken care of not by self-analysis or yourself trying to find an answer. The answer will come automatically from what Krishna says to Arjuna. I think that is the ultimate. The dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna is the ultimate. There is nothing more than that. Everything is there, provided we know how to interpret it and look into it. And in our scriptures, that is the scriptures like Tilpavai and all, which is our ancient scripture, they say blindly follow your guru. Your guru will never mislead you. If the guru misleads you, automatically God will, bring in another guru to put you into right path. But that is, have faith in guru. Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha. Like that it goes. So you are my immediate guru now. Please take care of me.
So yeah, see, the what I like about what you said is the faith. So it's great. It's very good to have that faith, and we see that here, right? Even in the spiritual path that we discussed, that faith is a very, very critical and crucial component of progress in the spiritual path. So what you said, the underlying foundation among all that you spoke is that the staunch faith, the solid faith that you have, which is great. Any other comment, questions?
Srini, and I think it's for long. It's about this. It's the reaction what Srini Masan said, with this guru and blindly follow your guru. I don't understand. Either I don't understand or I don't agree. But I think it's a long question. Yeah. I have personal experience. Yeah, I have an experience when I blindly followed my guru, and it was a disaster. And for me, I don't know. For me, this question with guru is it's a very complicated one, and I just can't say I can't follow somebody blindly.
The kind of confusion and the kind of doubts which occur in any mind is infinite. We believe in something today, tomorrow the situation changes, we start believing in something else. Suppose we try to find a solution to our problem, we might have found a solution also, but unfortunately the problem changes. What will you do? You have found a solution, worked hard for several years, you have found a solution, but the problem changes. Well, when the problem changes, your solution also has to change. So all this leads to confusion in mind, and it is something like cooking your own food and getting a pizza from a restaurant. A guru will give you a pizza from the restaurant just like that to ensure that you are damn happy. See, it is always believed that restaurant food is more tasty and people like it than the domestic food. But the truth is, the domestic home-cooked food is far superior to pizzas. That is how the life goes on. A guru, okay, you don't require a guru. Keep on trying in your life to arrive at a correct solution. Like when you board an aircraft, you have a faith in that pilot that he will take you safely and you will ensure that he will land you safely. Similarly, if you have a guru, the guru will take you towards your devoted path, and ensure that you are enlightened over a short period of time.
So I think I got Petra's question and I got your answer also. But I think Petra has a longer question, which Petra, if you have not completely asked it, you're welcome to be the first person to ask next time or send it on WhatsApp. Either way will work, right? In the group, you can do that. But yeah, like I said earlier, each one of us has to discover our path. Each one of us has to discover facilitators along that path. And the guru is nothing but a facilitator. And like Srinivasan said now, because there is a guru, we may be able to find a solution to one part of the question in a faster manner than we would otherwise. And then the guru may change also. Over a period of time, you may have different gurus, or you may just have that one guru. It's at the end of the day, it comes to each one has to figure out our spiritual path. But faith does help. Faith helps immensely in that path. So if you have faith, either you will get that guru or you will have, Bhagwan will bring that guru in front of you, or be himself be the guru.
So a guru need not be a person, right? It could be Gita itself.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I would say yes.
Because it's very difficult to put all your faith in a person. Not possible.
Yeah.
Petra is my
Not in.
This is what
I understood what you're trying to say, Petra, because I myself agree with you. Like that's how it is with me also. It's very difficult to put a faith in a person. But yes, what Shrini is saying, that different gurus at different times, our parents were our guru at a particular time, or somebody, whoever we can learn from, I think could be our guru for that particular thing that we have learned. That's about it.
Any other thought? Okay, thank you. Hari Om. We will meet next Saturday, and thank you for today's interaction. It's always welcome, when people come up with ideas. Once the satsang where I'm sharing verses from the Bhagavad Gita and the learning is over, it is meant for all of us to discuss. So this 30 or 40 minutes that we spend, it will be very nice if all of you come up with your thoughts, questions, comments, and so on. It will be very, very nice. Thank you. Hari Om. We'll see you next Saturday.